Welcome back to Inside Politics. Our guests today are Debra Maggart from CivicPoint, LLC lobbying group, and Joel Ebert of TENNESEAN. We're talking about the 110th General Assembly, which ended its work this past week. We've talked a little bit about the speaker's race that's coming up. The biggest block of votes is probably, again, all these new legislators that are coming in. So what happens with the candidates for that may be most important about how they do in terms of lining up votes for people who haven't even been elected yet. But that's what they'll be doing, using their PAC money and other things to try to get that kind of support they need to get the votes, and those votes will actually be taken in November before they ever come to Nashville to start actually casting votes in the legislature.
That's correct. That'll be the first thing they do after they get elected. They will choose the Speaker of the House in the Republican caucus. So with 25, I think it's 25 freshmen, that is a significant number of votes that will get you to the Speaker's ship.
And so these new members get to come in really early, Joel, and get to see the sausage making done in a way perhaps they never were quite aware of when they were running for office, maybe. Yeah,
I mean, I think there's one thing that you can, watch it from afar and read about it and think you know about it, but it's another when you're actually there and seeing this process play out.
One other thing, I think you mentioned it a second ago, Joel, that we have Mark Norris in the Senate, who's the Senate Majority Leader, and might continue in that post, but he's been nominated by President Trump to be a federal judge. That nomination seems to have been stalled, if not dead, in the Senate. Is that still going to happen? Is he still planning to pursue that, or is he going to stay in the Senate?
No, he plans on pursuing. I think that it's still been in limbo. I think the thought is that at some point he will be confirmed. He always says, I'm the leader until I'm not. So he plans on staying in his role as majority leader until that nomination goes through.
Looking at what the legislature did this last year, it could be something late they did in the term may have the most impact on people in the state, and that's the passage of the bill to allow liquor stores to be open on Sundays and most holidays, and for grocery stores to be able to sell wine on Sundays and on most of those holidays, I think, except for Christmas, Easter, and Thanksgiving. This was part of a process that's been going on for some time in terms of that change. But liquor used to be a really flashpoint issue. It's not anymore.
It's not anymore. There's still a few holdouts. There's still a few people that just will not vote for a liquor bill. Most people do, I think.
Is that because consumer choice is so important now, more so than, say, what used to be moral issues on some people's part?
I would say that's it. And also, we've had so many people move to Tennessee. That was what we always heard about, selling wine in grocery stores. All these people would move here and they would say, I can't believe you can't buy wine in the grocery store. And so I think that helped move that ball down the field for that.
Joel, another bill that has not yet been signed by the governor but is on his desk would allow MTSU and Tennessee State University to sell alcohol at their athletic contests, not just football, but perhaps others as well. Again, that's a step that we've not seen before. So what's that a sign of? Was that a surprise vote to come out that way?
I think it was. I mean, there was a bill early on in this session, well, I'd say midway through the session, that essentially would have done it just for MTSU. The debate on the floor of the House was, we can't allow this. It's a slippery slope. If we do this at one school, all of a sudden 8 schools are going to want to do this.
And that is likely what's going to happen next year. Where all the regent schools are probably going to want that opportunity as well.
Yeah, so I think we're going to see more of that in the future.
So does the Tennessee legislature go to the Southeastern Conference, so they'll change their rules so Vanderbilt and Tennessee can do the same thing? Does Vanderbilt and Tennessee want to do it?
From what we've heard so far, it doesn't sound like it, but that can easily change in a couple of months.
One of the things I've noticed in the last couple of years that when I was a member of the legislature I never saw very often was bills being lost on the floor. Like a bill getting all the way to the floor and not getting 50 votes. That used to never happen. And it seems like in the last couple of years that has happened more frequently. And this time, this session, it probably happened at least 3 times.
Why do you think that's happening? What's changed to make that happen?
I don't know if the people running their bills are not whipping their votes. I don't know. But I mean, I would be embarrassed to lose a bill on the floor. That would horrify me.
Well, let's talk about that in terms of the governor. He had a bill this session that was defeated on the House floor where it actually got more no votes than yes votes. It was one to make some changes in the Tennessee Promise program that would allow, they would require those students to take, I think, at least 40 hours a year.
Right.
And some lawmakers thought that was not fair because some people want to take 5 or 6 years to graduate, and this would be tough on kids, particularly those who are first-generation lawmakers. If the governor's people knew it was in that much trouble, why didn't they pull the bill off the floor?
I'm not convinced they knew. I mean, I think that it went from David Hawk, who was carrying the bill, all of a sudden to Ryan Williams. Williams has it on the floor. I don't know if he just didn't count the votes or what happened, but it was a stinging blow for both Williams and, you know, the governor's office. On the Senate side, they were surprised by it as well. They thought it was going to pass. So Mark Norris said, you know, I think it's not over yet. And by the end of the session, yeah, it didn't end up going through.
The governor also had some problems. He got his UT reduction to the board size, to put it in line with what the regent schools are in terms of their size. But when we got into the appointment process, it didn't go well. I had several of them rejected. There's still 3 that are kind of sort of in acting positions within limbo. Surely that was a little embarrassing.
Well, and there was very serious questions asked in the hearings, and the tone was something that you normally don't see. In my view, the way the senators questioned those folks that were up for those appointments.
Was it because they were mad at the current UT board, and some of those were the people that were rejected? Were they mad because of what happened up there with controversies over gender, controversies over sex week, controversies over selecting athletic coaches?
Yes.
Was that it, or was it more because of some gubernatorial candidates may not be happy that the governor was going to get to make all the appointments to the new board?
It's probably both, but the sex week issue has been a problem for years.
They cut money from the UT budget about it one year.
They did. This has been a conversation that the legislature has had for years, and even a lot of the Democrats, they don't like it either. I mean, it's not just a Republican thing, I think. So I think that started the argument, I believe.
On the other side of it, the governor did get his opioid package passed. It's going to cut down the number of opioid prescriptions that can be given, I think, to as little as 5 days supply in one case. Is that going to make a significant change in the opioid problem in terms of drugs being available in Tennessee?
I think it remains to be seen. I mean, I think anytime that you try and do, you know, smaller things like this, it's going to have some impact. Other states have tried to do similar things, and New Jersey, for example, did try and limit the number of days you can have prescriptions. And it did, at least their government claims, have a major impact. So I think over time we will see. I think the next governor is still going to have to come up with a comprehensive plan on this issue that is clearly not going away.
The $30 million that was in one of the bills that would go for treatment to a large degree, some of it was federal money as well. Is that like a drop in the ocean at this point, or how much? I mean, we're not really addressing it in terms of dollars to take care of.
Well, it is a good start, because I know in the past we would try to get money for treatment, and it just always seemed, not just about opioids, about a lot of things that people need help with. But it's definitely a start, and you know, 3 people a day, I believe, in Tennessee die from this addiction, and you know, you got to start somewhere. So to your point, you know, perhaps, you know, it'll begin with these smaller ideas put in place.
Joel Ebert of the TENNESEAN and Debra Maggart of the CivicPoint LLC government relations firm are our guests on Inside Politics. We're talking about the aftermath, what went on in the 110th General Assembly, which ended this past week. Back to continue our conversation after this break.